All right, live stream should be starting up now, guys. Happy Monday. Hope you guys have had a great day so far. We're here to talk about Steelers, Bengals, Monday Night Football Showdown slate. We got $1 million up top, so there's money to be won on the slate to be made, but it's not going to be a super entertaining game, I don't think. So if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. My name's DK. What we'll be going over in this live stream is we'll take a look at Inactives, Actives. There's one big piece of news we got to go over, that being James Conner. We'll take a look at the Vegas odds. We'll review the snap counts for each of these teams in the most recent game, and then kind of give a player-by-player breakdown, and then go to questions at the end. So we got 30 minutes until lock, so we will have time for questions at the end. So let's just jump right into it, guys. For actives, inactives. James Conner is the key one to note here. He is inactive for the Steelers. So that does change some things. It makes Benny Snell more viable. He's priced in the mid-low 6K range. The issue I have with Benny Snell is not a super talented running back. And same thing I said about James Conner is the Steelers just are a team that if they're playing from ahead, or behind, they just don't run the football. So, like, how many touches do I expect for Benny Snell? Maybe like 10 to 12 carries, maybe a target or two. So he's not out of play, but might be a little bit over-owned. I think I'd rather take a shot on one of those cheaper Steelers backs and go up to get those Steelers wide receivers. At least that's how I feel on this slate. And then Bengals inactives, there's nothing really to note there. So, and the big one there was James Conner. And stupid slate, yeah, I mean, you can say that for sure. It's going to be kind of dumb. But do my best to break it down here. So Steelers, Bengals, again, a 41 over under. Steelers are currently 14.5 point favorites. So we'll go over like roster construction, but definitely a very popular build tonight. I think it's gonna be the 5-1. 5-1 Steelers. I think that's probably a safe way to go about it. You can go 4-2, or even if you're feeling really risky, go like 3-3. But I think 5-1 probably the safe way, probably the chalky way to start a build for this showdown slate. But yeah, let's review the snap counts for these teams in their most recent game. So again, that last game, Samuels did play 47% of the snaps. I think he's probably their best pass catching running back. Conner played 40%. Again, he will be out. So Benny Snell probably gets the early down work. But like I said, Steelers just don't run the football a ton. So don't expect a lot of touches for Benny Snell. But he's definitely someone they can probably bring in the goal line. So viable. Then a guy like McFarland, I think, does become a little bit more viable. I think he is actually at the flat minimum, if I'm not mistaken. He's at $200. He'll be worked in a little bit, I think, so a viable play there. So really, the three Steelers running backs are in play. Snell, I think, will be decently popular. Am I super excited about it? No, but Samuels and McFarland, I think, look like pretty nice plays for cheap if you need someone like, again, below like $1,000. All right, let's talk about wide receiver for the Steelers. So this is a little bit more clear-cut. In the last game, it's interesting, right? Because Deontay Johnson struggled with dropping. I think he dropped 3 or 4 passes, so they benched him. Because normally the Steelers' wide receiver rotation is like James Washington, or is Juju, Claypool, and Deontay basically playing the entire game or close to it, like 70, 80, 90% of snaps. And then James Washington, as the number 4, would get mixed in for like 30 to 40% of the snaps. Well, that last game, Deontay got benched, and James Washington got a huge boost. He played 81% of snaps. Now, looking at coach speak, they said they're not going to limit Deontay Johnson, so he is the wide receiver I think is the most boom or bust for the Steelers. And the reason is if he goes out there and struggles and like drops a ball or two, they probably bench him again. So there's definitely risk with Deontay Johnson. I think that will lower the ownership a bit on him. And when playing well, we've seen some massive games from Deontay, so I think he does make for a nice GPP play because I don't know if he's going to be super popular after that last game. And again, does have a pretty low floor if things do go wrong. Now, Ebron, another guy that does struggle with dropping the ball. He played 67% of the snaps, but he will drop a lot of passes too. Now, don't really think he gets benched from McDonald, but Ebron is someone in the mid-range. If you look at the pricing, I think looks pretty decent. And then Vance McDonald, I expect about a third of the game. He's averaging a little over a target a game in the last 4 games. I mean, last year he showed he was a decent pass catching tight end, so you can throw him in the same range of those backup Steelers running backs of guys like Samuels and McFarland, right? A viable cheap play for sure. Cincinnati, this is interesting in their, at least for the running backs in the last game. So Gio, if we go to the previous week, Gio was the guy that was playing like 60-ish% of the snaps. I think he played 67% of the snaps in week 13. Week 14, or not week 15, week 14, he fumbled the ball, and then they benched him. Only played 24% of the snaps. So it was kind of a three-way split there with Perrine, Williams, and Gio. So what do I think happens tonight? A little bit hard to tell. I would say Gio probably gets the first crack at it, but yeah, the Cincinnati Bengal backfield it's kind of ugly. Now, there's some cheap plays in Perrine and Williams that, if you go a heavy Steeler stack and you need someone super cheap, you can take a shot on one of those guys and hope they get you like 5 or 6 fancy points. As far as wide receiver go, it's a little bit more clear cut for the Bengals and the wide receivers. Higgins, Green, Boyd, all played over 80% of the snaps. Erickson probably gets a few snaps, but nothing more than a dart throw. And then tight end Drew Sample played 90% of the snaps, while Carter played a quarter of the game. So we kind of got a good idea of who's going to play what in this game. Again, there's some risk, right, with guys like Deontay, guys like Gio, right? Those guys probably have the most, up and down nature of, if they struggle, they're going to look elsewhere. So Giovanni Bernard's mustache in the captain spot, yeah. Great stuff, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. But all right, guys, we're closing in on 200 viewers. If you enjoy this content, we'll ask you to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Closing in on 7K subs. Going to try to hit 7K by the end of the year. Might be possible. We'll see. So, guys, if you guys do enjoy this free content, would appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. So, let's start at the top. And Big Ben, 11.8K. I think he's probably the safest play of the slate, just because, like I said with the Steelers, they just don't run the ball. It doesn't matter. Like, they're playing from ahead, they're playing from behind, they don't run the ball. So 46, 51, 53, and 37 pass attempts for Big Ben in the last four games. Now, he hasn't really had a massive game, right? 17, 13, 22, and 15. But the floor on Big Ben is super, super high. Even in GPPs, like, this guy is going to be the absolute chalk. I would say above 90% owned. For cash games, don't get cute. Play Big Ben. You probably look to him in the captain as well, to be honest, just because he's a guy that, again, will probably throw the ball 40-plus times no matter what. So I like Big Ben. Can you make the argument to fade him in GPPs? You would need probably something crazy to happen. Now, we've seen crazier things in these showdown slates, right? You saw Derek Carr get injured the last showdown slate, and Marcus Mariota was in the winning lineup. So, like, there's been crazier things, but for me, I only make one lineup. I'm not getting cute. I'm not fading Big Ben. Now, the three wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, Juju, and Claypool, all are going to be pretty popular. I think Juju's probably going to be the most popular, I would say, just because he's been really consistent last three weeks, 9, 10, and 7 targets. Again, playing out of the slot. I think he's a safe play. Deontay's probably the most boomer bust. And again, the reason I say that is the last game he got benched, only played about half the game. But we've seen some massive games from Deontay Johnson when playing well. So for like a cash game setting, he's still in play, but a little bit on the risky side. For GPPs, like him, again, I think the ownership does drop in a guy like Deontay. And then Claypool's at 8.6. He played in the last game 67% of snaps. Normally, he plays the least of the three, but he's the guy that they look to a lot in the red zone. Like early in the year, he had that stretch of games where he was scoring a touchdown basically every single game, and you're getting him at a little bit of a discount off of Deontay, off of Juju. So, yeah, really, there's not a ton negative to say about these Pittsburgh wide receivers. I think all three are going to be pretty popular. I think you can play all three if you want to with Big Ben. It's a viable build. You have to take a shot on a couple cheap plays, but yeah, really the Pittsburgh today is going to be very, very popular. And again, with Big Ben as wide receivers, I think they're the top plays of the slate. They're going to be very, very popular though. Below that, we have, let's first talk about Tyler Boyd. So he's at 8.4K, a little pricey, a little bit, but what you're getting with Tyler Boyd is he plays out of the slot majority of the time, and Finley, kind of their third string quarterback. I would say, normally quarterbacks that aren't as talented usually check down a little bit more. So they look to, dump offs to the running backs or tight ends or the slot wide receivers. So, I don't think he's going to look out wide a ton. That's just my guess. I don't think he's a very, very talented quarterback, but, makes Boyd more in play. Now, the thing is, like, are you going to play Tyler Boyd over one of these Pittsburgh receivers? You can. I think it's more contrarian. Again, I'm not super confident in Ryan Finley's ability. So Boyd is a contrarian play I do like. Again, he's going to be low owned. Like I said, the chalk is going to be Pittsburgh. It's probably the 5-1 build with Steelers, 5 Steelers, 1 Bengal. But Boyd is a nice contrarian play. The price, I think, will scare some people off. But if we're not looking at price at all, if we're just looking at the receivers, the Cincinnati receivers, I do like Boyd the best. But again, he is the priciest. Now, Ryan Finley's at $8K. Pretty cheap for quarterback. But, I mean, basically a third-string quarterback here. In games he's played in the NFL, he has not been good. Plus, going up against basically the number 1 defense here in the Steelers, an aggressive defense, this could get ugly. So, Finley's ownership is probably going to be the lowest we've got on a quarterback on a showdown slate. Like, I think below 25%, I'd say. I still think he is in play just because he's a quarterback. And, probably they'll be playing from behind. I don't think they're going to run the ball a ton. So if you can avoid turnovers, you could see him get, 10, 15, maybe on the high end. At best, I would say like 20 fancy points. I think he does go lower owned. If you want to differentiate yourself a little bit, right? Maybe you take out one of those Steelers receivers and take a shot on Finley, right? The ownership's going to be low. I think he's viable, but still risky here, even at 8K. Now, the Steelers defense, this is tricky because they have been solid this year, like really, really good defense. And they're going up against basically a third-string quarterback here. Cincinnati has just been kind of atrocious offensively the last few weeks, so people are going to fire up the Steelers defense. The only downside I will say here is the price. 7.2K. Basically, at this price, you need kind of a shutout with a bunch of sacks, or you need a defensive score, which is definitely in play. Like, that's definitely viable. But we've seen situations like this where the defense going up against a bad offense, like over 7K, has been like 40+% owned. I have a feeling the Steelers defense might hit about 50%. If that's the case, I personally want to look elsewhere. Just because, again, if Cincinnati scores like 1 touchdown and just avoids a defensive score and avoids giving up a pick 6, then the Steelers defense most likely will not be in the winning lineup. So don't get me wrong. Like, I like the Steelers defense as a play. I just think they will be a little bit over-owned tonight for their price. Let's see. Higgins is at 6.8, so I think it's a fair price, right? He's priced in the middle between Boyd, between AJ Green. He's at 8 targets in back-to-back games. Obviously, they're most likely going to be playing from behind. Again, I don't have a super strong take. Like, for me, I would rather play Ebron. I'm just more confident in the Steelers offensively. Like I said, with Deontay Johnson, Ebron has also struggled dropping the ball, but 7, 11, and 5 targets. So he's averaging, like 8 targets a game. He's a guy to look to in the red zone. 6.4K is a little bit of a discount off those guys at the top. So, Ebron is certainly in play here. It's froze. Did it freeze, guys? I think it still says it's good on mine. Only playing cash, Higgins or Steelers D. That's tricky. I mean, in cash games, I guess it's Steelers D, but yeah, that's a close one. Okay, so mentioned Higgins, mentioned Ebron. Again, I prefer Ebron. I think he's just a safer option at that price. Now, Benny Snell's at 6.2K. Okay, good. What's up, Paulie? What's up, DFS Whispers? Thanks, guys. So Benny Snell at 6.2K. He should lead the Steelers' backfield tonight. But that's not really like an amazing thing, right? Because in a couple games that he's led the backfield, he did have 16 touches against Baltimore. Now, that was, I think, a little bit more of an outlier because when James Conner was playing, he wasn't even getting close to that. That other game against Washington, he was kind of popular, had 8 carries for 5 yards. For me, I think he might be kind of like the Steelers defense, a little bit over-owned. I'm not saying he's out of play. What I expect from Benny Snell is probably 10-ish, 10 to 12 touches in the ground and maybe a couple targets. At that price, again, it's viable, but it might be a little bit over-owned. Let's see. Then we get to the backup quarterbacks. Yeah, Gio at 5.6. Depends on how you feel. Right, he kind of got benched for that fumble. Real quick. Trent with the $5 super chat. Thank you, man. Really, really do appreciate the support. Again, guys, super chat's not necessary at all. But let's see. You have Captain Juju with Claypool, Ebron, Higgins, Big Ben and Samuels. Thoughts with GPP? Thanks, DK. I like it a lot. I do. You got the 5-1 approach. Again, sure, that's going to be a somewhat popular build, but Juju's probably the receiver I feel the best about. You got Claypool in there. You got Ebron. You got Big Ben. Samuels, I think, is a nice value still. And then you're taking the shot on Higgins, right? Like, no, you're not going to feel amazing about any Bengals, but I like that. I have no issue with that. I think it's a good lineup. All right, back to Giovanni Bernard, Mr. Mustache. So if you feel like he goes back to kind of his lead back role, then he's a little bit more viable. But even so, like when he was playing like 60% of the snaps, like it's just hope to get like 8-10 touches in the ground, a couple targets through the air. It's just a more contrarian play. Not someone I'm super excited about. Now, AJ Green, really boomer bust. If you just look at the game logs, the last 4 games, 14, 0, 0, and 18. He is the cheapest of the bunch for Cincy. He should play a majority of the game. Okay. I think it's viable. Basically, everyone in Cincinnati is contrarian tonight. So, which Bengal do you land on, or do you play 2 is up to you. Kind of go with what works with your lineup. But yeah, AJ Green in play. Now, James Washington at 4-4. This one kind of depends on what you think happens with Deontay Johnson. If you think Deontay continues to struggle and he continues to drop passes, then you want to look to James Washington. He played 80% of the snaps the last game. Again, when Deontay got benched, it's James Washington that filled in. Now, if Deontay plays well and nothing else crazy happens, I probably expect 30 to 40% of the snaps for Washington, which is not out of play. But that, again, it really depends on what you think happens with Deontay. If you think he struggles, James Washington is probably one of the better value plays this slate. If you think Deontay gets back to normal form and, is not dropping passes, then James Washington's just a fine value, right? I expect 30 to 40% of the snaps if nothing crazy happens with the Steelers. Drew Sample at 4-2. So kind of the same thing I'll say about Boyd, right? He'll play a majority of the game, and with a sketchy quarterback play, he's a guy that maybe they look down to a little bit more for short passes. 4, 5, 7, 4 targets. Again, definitely viable here, and he is pretty cheap at 4.2K. Now, Boswell, 4K, I like for value. I like him a decent amount here. I expect the Steelers to be able to move the ball to score some points. They should be playing from ahead. And yeah, I just feel much more comfortable at him compared to the Cincy wide receiver. So Boswell, certainly in play. I do like him a good amount there for value, actually. And then below that, we kind of get to the dart throw. So we have the Bengals D at 2-2. Crazier things have happened. I'm not looking at them for my one lineup, but at that price, like if they luck themselves into a punt return touchdown or a pick 6, like that, they're basically going to pay out their salary. So am I going to play the Bengals defense? No. Are they completely out of play? No, but I'm not really prioritizing them, obviously. The backup running backs with Perine and Williams. So 1-4 for Perine and 1-2 for Williams. It kind of depends on what you think happens with Gio. If you think they kind of go to this 3-headed monster and utilize all 3 backs, or you think, again, Gio struggles, then these guys are playable. Now, neither are great plays. How many touches they get dependent on what happens with Gio. Neither are great pass catching backs, but they're 1-4, 1-2. And if you're going with that full Steelers stack and you got to play someone super cheap, it's either the Bengals D or one of these backup running backs. So, don't really feel great about it, but depends on roster construction. And then Vance McDonald at 1K. So he's the backup tight end. He'll play about a third of the game. Again, averaging a little over a target a game. Definitely viable. More of a dart throw, to be honest. But he can get it done. All you really need is a touchdown or a couple catches from him at that price. Then we get to the couple of value plays that I like. So Jalen Samuels at $800, I think looks like one of the better one of the better cheap plays. Don't expect him to be the lead back, but he doesn't have to be, right? He's a guy that maybe 30 to 40% of the snaps, but he's a good pass catching back. The last couple of games, he's been healthy. 3 catches and 4 targets, 3 catches and 4 targets. He's $800. So I do like Samuels for value. Also, I think McFarland is viable. I think both kind of get worked in with Benny Snell. And Benny Snell, I expect kind of the early down work, where maybe McFarland, Samuels are going to be their passing down running backs. I think Samuels will be more popular, but don't rule out McFarland either. They're both viable, both cheap plays. I think are certainly in play under $1,000. And then that's really it. Like Erickson will play probably about 10% of snaps, nothing more than a dart throw there. Really, that's it. Like Carter's the backup tight end for Cincy. I think he's had one catch and one target so far, basically. And he's had, I guess, he's averaging like a half a catch a game. So you could throw him in the player pool, but nothing you're going to feel good about. So that really wraps up, guys. Again, for like a cash game setting, I think you probably want to load up on the Steelers. Even for GPPs, it's going to be a popular build. If you want to get different, which you can, if you feel a little bit comfortable with the Cincinnati, then maybe go like a 4-2 or even a 3-3. That's going to differentiate yourself from the field, right? If you're going to try to take down the Millie Maker, you got to do something different. So whether that be take a shot in someone super low on the captain, or maybe play a couple Cincy guys, right? Because I don't think a ton of people do that. It's definitely going to be a 5-1 build for most people. So that's kind of my recap, guys. We got a little under 10 minutes until lock. Again, really do appreciate the support, guys. Let's get to some questions here. There's no way AJ Green is in play. I mean, he's the cheapest of the wide receivers. I don't really feel amazing about it. AJ Green literally can't get open against good defenses. Yeah, I mean, that is true. He's kind of dusty. He's kind of washed. He will be out the majority of the game. I don't really like him, but you got to play someone on Cincy. Boyd is the best Bengals play, not even remotely close. I agree. I think Boyd is the best, but he's also the priciest, so you're going to have to fit some value in there to get him in. Samuels or Ebron for cash? Ebron. If price doesn't matter, Ebron. Ebron is going to be out there about 70% of the time, or 70% of the game. He's targeted a lot. Again, averaging about 8 targets a game last 4 games. Boyd has potential to break one. Yeah, I think Boyd is my favorite Bengal. He is. But like I said, 8.4K, it's pricey. So you're going to have to probably spend down on a couple options there. Going to pivot to McFarland over Chalk Samuels and GPP. I kind of like that. I do. To get a little bit different. Samuels is going to be really popular. But yeah, you can definitely look to McFarland. I think Samuels probably plays a little bit more. But you're also going to get McFarland at probably way less ownership. Do you like Steelers D at captain and big GPP? You can do it. You can. Again, the one thing I'll say about the Steelers D is I just think they will be a little bit overowned for their price. Now, I do think they're firmly in play. But at 7-2, you kind of need a shutout or you need a defensive score, which is, again, definitely possible. But I have a feeling they're probably going to be about 50% owned. For me, I'm going to look elsewhere, but it's a scary fade, especially with them going up against the third-string quarterback there for the Bengals. So the answer to that question is yes. The only downside I will say is I think they will be a little bit overowned. Everybody like and subscribe. DK, Merry Christmas to everyone. Bye. Appreciate that, man. Thank you. Have a good night, man. Samuels, captain. I don't think we have to. I don't. I just don't think it's worth it. I would just rather get to one of those Steelers guys at the top. Or, take a shot on a guy like Boyd to get really different. Marcus Moore's out tomorrow, by the way. Did that news just come out? Okay, so Batum becomes a little bit more viable for the Clippers. Not really someone I'm overly excited about. Great show, bro. Appreciate that. Thank you. Boswell or Samuels for GPP? They're both going to be somewhat popular. I mean, I still feel better about Boswell. I think he just has a higher floor. So Boswell, if you can get him. Gio or Sample? I'm going to go Sample, and the reason being is what we saw the last game, right? Gio struggled, snaps went way down as the 3-headed monster. If that kind of continues, then I just feel more comfortable with Sample, who, as long as he stays healthy, gets 80 to 90% of the snaps. And again, I think he could be someone they look to a little bit more here. Thoughts on Bernard? A risky option. Risky at his price. Again, if we go with the last game, he got benched. Will it happen again? I'm not convinced. I don't know. It could. But if they're going to utilize all 3 backs, then it's not great. And again, even when Gio was kind of the lead back playing 60, 70% of the snaps, he wasn't doing a ton. And so Gio, I think, is just more of a contrarian play. Boyd, Higgins, or Claypool? Depends on what you're playing. Cash games, Claypool. I think GPPs, I'll go Boyd there. Captain Boyd, flex, Deontay, Ben, Juju, Samuels, Travion Williams. Thoughts? It's risky. It is risky, but hey, you got to get different, right? You're taking a shot on Boyd. I think he's my favorite Bengal. Travion Williams, you're not going to feel great about it, but at his price, you got to hope maybe he runs one in. It's a risky approach for sure. Samuels or captain, again, I don't think we have to do it. I just don't know if that's necessary because you can fit Big Ben plus the top 3 receivers or Big Ben, 2 receivers, and Boyd and still have room for a couple value plays. So I don't think it's worth it to do that on this slate at least. Snell or Washington flex for GPP single entry? Tough. I think both will be a little bit overowned. I'm going to go Washington for the discount. Samuels or Williams for GPP? Samuels for me. Washington takes away snaps from Deontay or Claypool. So if Deontay struggles it's going to be Washington that steps in. So Washington will take snaps away from Deontay if he struggles. If he doesn't, again, I could probably get 30 to 40% of the snaps for Washington. Still in play, but wouldn't be as good of a play. GPP pick 2, Finley, Steelers defense, or Higgins. For GPP, I'll take the shot in Finley. It's gross, I know, but he's going to be pretty low owned for a quarterback. So I'll go Finley and I'll go Higgins. And the reason I do that is just because I think the Steelers D is a little bit over-owned tonight. I want to say it for like the third time. I'm not saying don't play the Steelers defense. I just think the one downside is they will probably be a little bit over-owned. Gio, Sample, again, I feel a little bit better about Sample. Do you have a coordinate for the showdown slates? Snell or Ebron and Cash? Ebron for me. DK, what do you think of Cash, Captain Juju, Flex, Sample, Big Ben, Samuel, Steelers defense, and Deontay Johnson? I think that's perfectly fine. Are you playing the Steelers defense, DK? I'm not. And again, I only play one lineup. I'm playing it in the Millie Maker. And again, the reason I am not is I think they will be a little bit over-owned. Can't wait for NBA tomorrow. So excited for NBA, guys. So excited. Again, we got 2 games, so don't go crazy in that slate. But yeah, really excited for the NBA. Cash, Big Ben captain with Deontay Johnson, Claypool, Ebron, Samuels, and Bernard. I think that's good. Now, Gio is the one questionable one, but really you got to play someone from Cincy, and at that price range, it's like Gio or it's AJ Green, or that's really it, or Sample. I might go Sample over Gio there. I don't know. It's tricky. For Cash, I might go Sample there just because I'm a little bit uneasy on Gio and his role. Cincy run all they have. Let's see. Did you see Marcus Morris out? What do you mean? Who loves minutes? Fantasy Labs tweeted Marcus Morris out. Okay. Need a quarterback. Need a QB for Boyd. Yeah. Ebron or Claypool for GPP. Well, I like Claypool's upside a little bit better. Let's see. Big Ben, Steelers defense, Higgins, Johnson, Snell, Williams for DK Cash. I don't know if I do that for cash games. Like Williams, again, I think I would rather have Samuels or McFarland there for value. Steelers defense firmly in play. The only downside I will say is I think they will be a little bit over on tonight, but yeah, definitely in play, even at 7-2. Big Ben a captain, Gio, Claypool, Samuels, Ebron, and Boyd. I think that looks decent. I like Claypool in deep GPPs. Who's your core for I don't really have a core for the showdowns. Do you feel like you have to have Big Ben at captain? For GPPs, no. For cash games, I think he's the safest captain. Don't necessarily have to play him, I don't think, at captain in cash games. I think you can play one of those wide receivers if you want to. Captain Deontay with Boswell, Finley, Ben, Samuels, Juju. That's good. That's good with me. You're taking a shot on Finley. Again, gross, but you will be pretty low on tonight. Both Ebron and Claypool. Blah, blah. Who's your captain tonight? I'm going with Deontay Johnson. And the reason I'm doing that is, again, I think he's boom or bust. He's low floor if he continues to struggle, but I like his upside if he plays well. How are you feeling about Steelers captain with Big Ben, Deontay Johnson, Claypool, Benny Snell, Williams? Again, it's a little bit constrained, but I'm fine with it. Sample, yes, sir. Yeah, I think Sample looks decent for value. Like, I think it's my favorite Cincinnati plays, I think, are Boyd at the top and then Sample down below. And, like, do I want to play Drew Sample? No, but he's 4-2, targets, 5-6 targets a game. And I expect, with the quarterback, probably to look his way a little bit more. Captain Johnson with Claypool, Ebron, Higgins, Big Ben, and Samuels. I like that a lot. Pretty similar to what I got going. FanDuel, I got Captain Big Ben, Juju, Johnson, Sample, and Ebron. It's good with me. Running a 3-3 to be different. Yeah, that's definitely going to be different. Boyd and the captain, Big Ben, Higgins, Ebron, Juju, and Williams. That's fine. Again, you're definitely going to differentiate yourself there. Bernard or Pirine, I feel more comfortable with Gio, but he's also a lot more expensive. Williams or Pirine? That's flip a coin there. I don't have a super strong take. Thoughts on Captain Juju, flex with Big Ben, Washington, Boyd, Finley, and Samuels. No issue there. Boswell or Washington? I think for cash games, it's Boswell, but the upside is higher on Washington if things go right. You think Finley will be super low owned? Yes. I think like 25% owned or so, I would guess. Ownership, it just locked, so we can go over some ownership. We can go over ownership once it comes in. Usually takes a minute or two. Switched to Sample and was able to get Juju over Claypool. Okay, I like that. Thanks, man. So ready for this NBA season. So ready as well. Thank you. Finley is trash. He's pretty bad. Like, I'm not going to lie. He is pretty bad, but he's a quarterback. He's going to be pretty low owned. We've seen some really crazy things in these showdown slates. Captain Steelers defense, yeah, again, firmly in play. I'm interested to see what the ownership is. It is out now. Once it loads in, it usually takes a minute or two. We'll go over some ownership, and then I'll get out of here, guys. We hit over 250 concurrent viewers, I think. Not bad at all. 67 likes, guys. Thank you again for the support. I do want to mention NBA. We got starting up tomorrow. If you're interested, I have a video up already breaking down a 2-game slate. I'll have a free live stream as well, plus the Patreon live stream 30 minutes before lock. So super ready for the NBA grind if you guys are looking for that content. Good luck, y'all. Let's get it lock. Yep, we are at lock. Again, ownership does usually take a minute to load in. I will go over it in the Millie Maker, and then I'll get out of here. So if you guys want to stick around, we can take a look at ownership, see what it's like. Rams-Jets game yesterday is proof that anything can happen. Exactly, really. Like, it is anything that can happen. Yeah, I can show you my lineup. So my lineup is Deontay Johnson and captain with Big Ben, Juju, Ebron, AJ Green, and Samuels. So do I want to play AJ Green? No. I just plugged him in there because it kind of fit with my 5-1 stack. Ownership wise, Deontay 59%. This is in the Millie Maker. Big Ben 88%. Again, I said about 90, so that's about right. Juju at 51%. Ebron at 36%. Kind of like the ownership on Juju and Ebron. A little bit lower than I thought. Samuels is 24%. Again, he was, I think, one of the better value plays. And then again, AJ Green at 15%. So that's what I went with. You don't do UFC right now. Unfortunately, I don't. Steelers defense is 52% owned. So that's I said 50%. Like I said, they can definitely get it done, but I knew there would be a little bit over-owned tonight. Claypool at 41%. The receivers for Pittsburgh are a little bit lower owned than I thought. Benny Snell 37%. Bengals defense is 2% owned. Finley 17%. Okay, so I'm curious to see what he's in the Millie Maker. Ryan Finley, that is. I'm guessing below 25% if he's 17% in your 20 max, but we'll see once I can find a lineup with him. And he is 16% owned. So, yeah, that's probably the lowest owned you'll ever get a quarterback in the showdown slate. It's gross, it is, but we've seen crazier things happen. So, yeah, I'm really not super surprised by the ownership. I think, I was guessed right in the Steelers, about 50%, Big Ben 90%. Wide receivers a little bit lower owned than I thought, and Finley was a little bit lower than I thought as well. But, yeah, that's really it, guys. So, I think it's going to wrap it up. Again, I really do appreciate you guys coming to check out the live stream. Greatly appreciate it, guys. An NBA content video already up. I'll have a live stream tomorrow as well, free live stream, plus the Patreon live stream if you guys are interested in that. So thanks again. Have a great day. I'm going to go enjoy this game. I hope you guys do as well.